The morning fog still clung to the vacant lot at South Norton Avenue, a pale shroud over the weeds and gravel. A mother, pushing her stroller through the working-class neighborhood of Limerick Park, stopped cold. Her daughter pointed at something white in the brush, something that did not belong. What she saw would freeze the city of angels in its tracks, a discovery that would become the most whispered about crime in American history. The woman who would become known as the Black Dahlia was born Elizabeth Short in Hyde Park, Massachusetts, in 1924. She was the middle daughter of Cleo and Phoebe Short, a family that had known stability until the Depression shattered it. When Elizabeth was 6 years old, her father parked his car on a bridge, left a note, and vanished. He was presumed dead by suicide, but he had simply walked away. Elizabeth grew up in Medford, a quiet girl with pale skin and dark hair who dreamed of escape. The family struggled. She was shy, prone to asthma, and she watched her mother work double shifts to keep the house. When she was old enough, she left for Florida, chasing the warmth and the promise of something better. She was not an actress. She was not a femme fatale. She was a young woman looking for a foothold in a world that had already taken so much. The war brought her to California. She worked as a waitress, a file clerk, a cigarette girl. She fell in love with a pilot named Major Matthew Gordon, who sent her letters from overseas. She wore a ring on her finger, waiting for a proposal that would never come. Gordon died in a plane crash before they could marry. Elizabeth was 21 years old, and the pattern of loss had already set its teeth into her. The nickname came from a dark joke. A friend at the soda fountain called her the Black Dahlia, a play on the film The Blue Dahlia and her habit of wearing black dresses and dark flowers in her hair. She liked the name. It sounded glamorous. She could not have known it would become the title of her death. On January 9, 1947, Elizabeth was seen at the Biltmore Hotel in downtown Los Angeles. She was waiting for someone. She had dinner, lingered in the lobby, and then she stepped out into the cold night air. She was never seen alive again. For 6 days, she disappeared into the fog of Los Angeles, a city of millions, where a woman could vanish between one street lamp and the next. What happened in those 6 days remains the deepest shadow in the case. She was held somewhere. She was kept alive, then killed, then handled with a cold precision that suggested something worse than rage. The killer did not act in haste. The killer took time, took care, took her from this world in a way that was methodical and silent. The morning of January 15, the mother and her child were not the only ones to find her. A neighbor walking to work saw the same shape and called the police. The first officers on the scene understood immediately that this was not an ordinary murder. The body had been posed, arranged as if for a photographer, placed in the open where she would be found. The city had never seen anything like it. The LAPD launched the largest manhunt in the city's history. Hundreds of officers were assigned. Thousands of interviews were conducted. Every lead was chased into dead ends. The press descended like a flock of hungry birds, and the department made a fatal mistake. They let reporters see the scene. They let them photograph the evidence. They fed the story, and the story grew teeth. Letters began arriving at the offices of the Los Angeles Examiner. Someone was writing to the press, claiming to be the killer. The letters were taunting, filled with details that only the murderer could know. They promised to surrender, but they never did. The Examiner published the letters, and the public went into a fever. The case became a circus. A small address book was found near the scene. It contained names and numbers, but none of them led to a killer. A packet of photographs was recovered from a bus station locker. The photos showed Elizabeth, alive, smiling. They were left as a message, but the message was written in a language no one could translate. The investigation was drowning in evidence that meant nothing. Suspicion turned toward those with medical training. The body had been handled with surgical skill, a clean division that suggested someone who knew anatomy. Dr. George Hodel was a prominent physician with a dark reputation. Years later, his own son would accuse him of the murder, citing secret recordings made by the LAPD during a wiretap operation. The tapes captured Hodel speaking of a woman in the morgue, of a secret he would take to his grave. He was never charged. Dr. Patrick S. O'Reilly was another name in the files. He had been seen with Elizabeth in the days before her death. He was questioned, released, and the trail went cold. The red lipstick murder, another unsolved killing from the same era, shared disturbing similarities. Some detectives believed the same hand wrote both crimes. Leslie Dillon was a bellhop who wrote to the police with a strange, intimate knowledge of the crime. He described details that had not been released to the public. He was brought in for questioning, held for weeks, and then released. He could not be broken. He could not be placed at the scene. He vanished back into the city. The Cleveland torso murderer, an unidentified killer who had terrorized Ohio in the 1930s, was considered. The methods were similar. The precision was the same. But the geography was wrong, and the connection was never proven. The case became a magnet for theories, each one more elaborate than the last. At least 60 people confessed to the murder of Elizabeth Short. Some were mentally ill. Some were seeking attention. Some were genuinely disturbed. Each confession was tested, and each one failed. The killer walked among them, invisible, silent, and the LAPD could not find a single thread to pull. The case changed Los Angeles. It darkened the city's image of itself. The Dream Factory had produced a nightmare, and the world was watching. The tabloids were born in the shadow of the Black Dahlia. The way crime was reported, the way victims were remembered, the way the public consumed violence, all of it shifted on that cold January morning. The files remain open at the LAPD Homicide Special Section. They sit in boxes, yellowed and thin, still waiting for a name that has never come. Over 75 years have passed, and the case is the most famous unsolved murder in America. It has become a myth, a ghost story, a cautionary tale about the dark underside of a city built on light. Elizabeth Short was more than a crime scene photograph. She was a daughter, a sister, a young woman who wanted to be loved. She walked into the fog of Los Angeles and never walked out. The city has changed 100 times since then, but the fog never fully lifts. Some shadows are permanent. Some names stay cold. Some stories never end.